Okay, let's talk about Dak Prescott. One of the most controversial players. I just feel like everyone has a different take on Dak Prescott. There's good things about him. There's bad things about him. There's in between things about him. But ultimately, for the highest paid quarterback in the league, I figured it'd be interesting to make a video and discuss what I like about him. Also, maybe why I think that he isn't quite as good as some other quarterbacks, what his potential issues are, and what holds him back from being MVP quarterback, although he has finished second MVP voting before in his career. Let's talk about it all. So first, let's start off with some positives. One thing, I just think he's a really accurate quarterback. For example, this play, it's a zone coverage concept. It's going to be a cover 3 zone where one receiver towards the top of the screen runs a route trying to clear out the corner. Another receiver will follow him. That's the receiver that you want to throw to. However, when this play begins, it's not the best well-ran situation here by Dallas. Is there a window down the field? Potentially. But again, this is a third and very long, so the Steelers are trying to cover right around where this receiver is. Still, Prescott's going to decide to take this chance, see if he can make this throw. And as you see, he makes a really accurate throw, gets it down there in a hurry, and they're able to pick up a completion. Really good catch there by CeeDee Lamb, who he ran his part of the route very well. It was more the setup route, didn't give him enough space. But ultimately, that's a good play by Prescott, and he is absolutely capable of making these types of plays. And sometimes it's a little even more simple than this. Like this one, for example, is one that you would say isn't necessarily a highlight reel level play, but still an effective one, I guess it probably is a highlight reel level play, just not for Prescott. Watch how when this play begins. So it's a cover 2 zone. The corner did not stay as far deep as he should have. Usually you want to cover 5 to 15 yards, but he is not doing that. He's only covering about 10 yards. So because of that, there is a bigger window than you usually get in this situation. Prescott doing a good job of noticing that he has a receiver who's open. As you see, makes the throw. They're going to be able to get a big completion out of this. And hey, listen, that's part of football, right? Is knowing who's open and getting the ball in the right area. That's what good quarterbacks do. Tom Brady, when he played his whole career, it's not like he was only throwing to cover guys the whole time, right? Part of his brilliance was being able to throw to open guys, finding the open guy. I'm not saying Dak Prescott is Tom Brady, but you get the point, right? But now let's go over to negatives. So why do, I'm someone who, I remember, listen, again, when I talk about people having wildly different opinions about Dak Prescott, last offseason, I looked at a bunch of top quarterback lists and just compiled them into kind of one consensus top quarterback ranking list, just out of curiosity. And the top 4 were the usual 4 you'd expect. Number 5 was Dak Prescott. So I think when I see stuff like that, I tend to push back a little bit. And these are a few instances why. A play like this, okay, listen, I should preface this by saying you're going up against TJ Watt. When this play begins, nothing is open, and TJ Watt is rounding the corner, ready to, do some damage here. I would say, though, I paused it right here for a specific reason. This is right at the 2.5 second mark. This is usually how much time you get. And especially against TJ Watt, you have to kind of know at a certain point. You have to be aware of this stuff. And I think for Prescott, I would like to see him throw the football away here. That's what I would like to see him. At the very least, you have to protect the football at this point. Prescott does not protect the football, and because of that, the ball ends up coming out, and he fumbles it. The Steelers recover, and that's a big play that you just don't want to have go wrong right there. So that is aspect 1, is he doesn't play great under pressure. That's just statistically, his numbers do go down more than the average quarterbacks do when you're under pressure. Everyone's numbers go down when you're under pressure, right? But his is the bigger gap than the average quarterback. So that is one aspect that is an issue. Another thing is he just makes some odd decisions sometimes. Sometimes it's a small thing, but these things are stuff I notice when I watch film. For example, so this play, it's zone coverage. You see the concept on the screen. You have the receiver who's closest toward the sideline going over the middle, the tight end going towards the sideline. When this play begins, so the read here, to me, seems pretty clear. You should be looking at number 1, throwing to your receiver, not your tight end right here, because the player covering over the middle, the edge rusher here, who's dropped back into coverage, he is covering the tight end who's running out on that side of the field. Usually he stays where he's at, and you hit the tight end. Here, that's not the correct read to make. However, Prescott kind of just stays with the script right here. He decides to flip it to Ferguson. To his credit, makes a move, and they end up getting some yards there, but I still feel like they would have gotten more had he just stuck with what you're supposed to do on that play, or at least what I usually hear people say you're supposed to do on that play. It is possible Dallas just runs it differently. I'm not in the huddle, I can't say for sure, but you see some of these plays, and it's just kind of confusing as to why he makes those reads. And then, of course, you have plays like this, which are very confusing, why he makes this type of play. It's a zone coverage concept. You have a receiver trying to get kind of towards the edge of the end zone. This can definitely work. It's CeeDee Lamb. Always a good idea to throw it in his direction, right? But ultimately, sometimes there's a gap in coverage, and you can make something like this work. So, okay, that's what Prescott's going to look towards. When this play begins, though, it looks like CeeDee Lamb is kind of reading this almost like, hey, maybe I should just try to get to the corner of the end zone. You could throw over and make something work that way. As in like the back corner of the end zone, because the front corner of the end zone just isn't an option right here. There's a corner who could easily step in and make the play, and Prescott just makes this throw anyway. As you see, goes about as well as you would expect, which is not very well. A mistake by Prescott. And listen, this is one example. He's not doing this often. This was probably the worst play of his season last year. So I'm not saying this is all who he is. But, I think it's still fair to bring this stuff up. Again, using the stats to show that I'm not just taking isolated examples. He is someone who has a very high turnover-worthy play rate over his career, given the fact that he is kind of considered more of a game manager type. You would like to see him protect the football better. Last year, his turnover-worthy play rate was 4.7%, which is crazy high. It's usually lower than that, but still, that's something he has to be better at. So, okay, there's negatives with Prescott. But ultimately, I think I still get kind of hung up sometimes on, there are some real positives you see. Sometimes it's not even, just the good throws, like I mentioned earlier. Let's go over here. So, Prescott and the Cowboys are in a situation where they really kind of need this win. And if they can get into the end zone, they will win the game. If they can't, then they won't. So, hey, they've at least gotten to this point. They need to just finish the job here. They're going to try to run the ball, but running the ball at the 1-yard line against the Steelers, easier said than done. Prescott's going to hand it off, and this football is immediately fumbled. As of right here, though, again, this is part of what you like about Prescott, is the ball's on the ground. We've seen quarterbacks, I won't name any names, but we've seen quarterbacks not be too willing to jump on a football that is loose. Watch Prescott, dives on it. He does get the football, and again, it's a small thing, and a lot of quarterbacks would do it. But, hey, he's the guy who will do it. He's one of the guys who's he cares, he wants to win, he's willing to, we've seen him take hits. He's willing to do this stuff. He clearly cares about the game. And because he was able to fall on that football, it set up this next play, a zone coverage concept where you're going to have a receiver running from the offense's right to the offense's left. That's the one that you're hoping can get open right here. Actually, correction, this is the man coverage play. But still, let's see what happens. Prescott takes the snap. There is going to be a little bit of pressure. He drifts back in the pocket to kind of try and avoid that. As of right here, this is not a big window whatsoever, but it's 4th down. You need a touchdown to win. Prescott's going to have to just try to fire it through the window, and as I mentioned, he's an accurate quarterback. Watch him make that throw, and that sort of kept the season alive for the time being. Ultimately, Dallas did not have the season they wanted to have last year, but again, Prescott can make those very difficult throws at times. So ultimately, what is my opinion of Prescott? My opinion is that I think he's a totally effective game manager in the NFL. He is a quarterback that you would like to have on your team, and he is probably not going to have too many seasons where he starts every year and starts every game and has a bad season, just because he is an effective quarterback. Last year was the worst win-loss record he had of his career. He played half the season and went 3-5. Okay, that's on pace for either 6 or 7 wins. I guess rounds down to 6 wins on a season. That's not a great year, but that's probably the worst you're going to get with a guy like Prescott. I also think that it's, I don't know if I would ever put him in the top 5 range or even kind of sniffing that. I just think there are too many drawbacks here. But yeah, ultimately, I think he's a good, effective quarterback who I also have some issues with. But yeah, that's just kind of how I see it. Again, like I said, it seems like no two people have the same Dak Prescott opinion, so I'd love to know what your thoughts are on him. But yeah, those are mine. Let me know yours in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.